another problem we're having, and this is a serious problem nobody's admitted so far, okay? In 2008, I'd gone through some period of time, right? After I went up to Chicago, after 2006, I had some things happen. I got involved with stuff politically. I didn't agree with it. I left, right? I made some bad decisions, i.e., you go to work for an organization, they say they want you to be the co-director, and in the course of being the co-director, you have certain financial responsibilities. But then after you start, less than 6 months after you start, they say, hey, by the way, we don't have the money to pay you. I already went through all of this. I should have left right then, right? Because by 6 months in, especially if you're in a co-director role, 3 months, which is what, 3 months to 6 months in, somebody says we don't have enough money to pay you after the first 6 months. They did not engage you in a good faith contract. They should have told you up front, hey, we want to hire you for 2 years, but we only got money for 6 months, so you're going to need to work with us in order to get that money in the next 6 months to pay for your position and the rest of the needs we have, because the understanding is that you're going to be replaced by somebody else. So we want to make sure when you leave that the quality and the capability that we hired you for is actually funded for the next person to come in. That was the alleged intention, and they don't tell you up front, oh, wait a second, we don't have enough money to pay you after the first 3 or 4 months, so you're going to have to go 6 months to a year without getting paid in order for the rest of the staff to get paid. My advice, quit, because they didn't engage you in good faith. And by the 6 months or by the 3 months when they say that, they should already have given you all the information, so you should have actually known that within the first 30 to 60 days. Within the first 30 to 60 days, you should have had access to the books, and you should have had access to the financial records, and the treasurer and whoever was on the board at the time should have been forthcoming enough to say, we're hiring you, but we can't really afford you at the rate we said we would pay for you. After the first 6 months, we're going to need you to do these things. They don't do that. They did not engage in good faith. It was a setup from the onset. It doesn't matter how Christian they are. It doesn't matter how activist they are. They didn't engage you in good faith. I'm a testament to what will happen 15 years later, right? But here's the other thing about that. What they've been doing the last couple of years with these immigrants that have been coming into the United States is very comparable to what happened to me, right? Because after that, I got involved with a community of faith, and I felt sincere about that. My faith preference, my religious preference, there's no religious test to access the public trust. There's no religious test to access any aspects of citizenship. Presumably, that's what the First Amendment is about. But what happened is something similar to what's happening now. People from those countries south of the U.S.-Mexico border, for instance, generally have a different kind of experience with why they're fleeing or why they're immigrating than people coming from, say, Asia or, say, the Middle East. And so what they were doing without telling us or disclosing it was that they were staggering one group of people against another in order to get financing off the efforts of one. That's why whenever stuff from around that time period comes up, it's almost always about the one group and not the other group. And if it is about the other group, then nothing from what the other group did is supposed to be accessible. Like they had access to some sort of special user privileges that make it confidential. And yet everything else I did was supposed to be used on their behalf. Well, here's the thing. They just got all of these people from south of the U.S.-Mexico border into the United States. They've been harvesting them at these detention centers and all of these different so-called Christian organizations. See, in Texas, they had already gutted the sanctuary city laws. And so by the time they were having that budget wrangling, and all these other cities in the north were talking about sanctuary city. If somebody could get to the city, we'll offer them sanctuary. And then what happened? Well, the Trump administration says, okay, we're going to give you transportation from these detention centers at the border to those cities so you can provide them with sanctuary. What they say? No, we won't do that. No, we can't accept that transportation arrangement. Why? Well, that's a whole nother matter. I've already discussed that, including policy that would be engaged in order to deal with that in good faith. But those cities were hustling that they were going to be able to get people to the city so that then they could bond them without having to go through the intercessions of the other government agencies that would also bond those people. So now you got this situation where, like it or not, a lot of Zionist tendencies that identify as Christian in the United States that aren't Zionists, and they are Christian, got this thing where, at least I've been experiencing it for the last 3 years, vehemently, where first of all, they're doing this fucking ritual persecution of people that appear Jewish because they're not expressing themselves or acting in comportment with what they consider to be Christian. It ain't nothing to do with fellowship. It has nothing to do with your actual faith preference or practice. It is a torment. It is a torment to people that do not ally themselves politically with going along with the crime and accepting that they're supposed to relinquish everything about who they are and let somebody else take that. And in return, they just get whatever comes to them, and they're supposed to accept it as if Jesus has forgiven them, including for sins they didn't even fucking commit. And then you've got this other situation where they're trying to exploit and exacerbate very real things that have been going on for the last 20, 30, 40 years in the Middle East, including whatever's going on with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, 25 years ago, before I came to Texas, and then before the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the summer of 2006, that accompanied me being redeployed to Chicago, presumably to work as a co-director at a nonprofit that had no intention of actually paying me. At that time, things were going on one level. They've exacerbated that level ever since. And they've eliminated the history from before that time frame. But what was going on before this? Just like there were anti-globalization and anti-free trade protests that were going on all over the world before September 11th. Before 2005, 2006, and especially before the election of 2008, which, by the way, what did it do to immigration rights in this country? What did it do to the movement that had already been developed for immigration rights in this country, including between 2005 and 2008 election, right? We don't hear about that anymore. Nobody talks about that. Everybody's interested in demographic experience and racial equity. Nobody's actually talking about what's going on. What do you think racial equity is to a bunch of guys flipping mortgages through the FHA? They're certainly not CRA compliant, but nobody even talks about that anymore. The point of the matter is they eliminated all of the very astute political movement criticism that was going on before. What did they say? They were talking about lobbying. They were talking about the Christian Zionist lobby. And how the Christian Zionist lobby keeps conflating the narrative on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for completely opportunistic reasons. That when you talk about Zionism in the United States, by and large, we're not talking about Jewish people. We're talking about Christians that want to convert. It's to their manifest destiny. And in the process, we'll pit Muslims, we'll pit Arabs, we'll pit secular people, we'll pit Jewish people, including secular Jewish people, including people that are committed to social justice, against each other, and contrive to create some other scheme that presumably they're supposed to lend to without ever getting paid back. And that's part of how they've created this process in the last 10 years, which is like Ku Klux Klan light, where you got the white guys around the corner you're not supposed to see. You're supposed to see black authority, and then you're supposed to see the dopey Hispanic guy. And my understanding is at some point somebody made some deal. And they said, you know what, we're going to show you how to do this. And you're going to give us 10 years. And you're going to let us loan out your people for 10 years. And then after 10 years, your people will get to move into their positions. The problem is they extended the loan. This shit was supposed to be over in 2020 for Hispanic people and Latino people in this country. What happened? What happened to the Hispanic and the Latino leadership that was promised that if they took a short-term hit, that their people would be able to start gaining some momentum? Well, a lot of the people that they drew on to actually organize that movement, where are they? And I'm not just talking about the Latino people, I'm talking about the black people too. They've also been erasing Latino history, and they've also been erasing black history. They have completely marginalized entire segments of the black community when it comes to exposure to black history, black political movement, including black people that worked with other people. They've gutted that history. It's been gutted in Texas the entire time I've been here. Day by day, week by week, they do more and more and more. This isn't about who's Jewish enough. This isn't about who's Christian enough. These people don't actually have Christian values. That's why I say this. Don't talk to me about whether I'm a Christian or a Jew or not, because you're not a fucking Christian. This is not how Christians act. So stop this bullshit narrativization you try to get, that it's about you being Christians and that your culture is under attack. Your culture isn't attacked. You hedged on genocide. You've genocided numbers of cultures, including in your own fucking country. Apparently, you didn't pay off your fucking loans. And I'm not going to give you another one.